Welcome back, everyone. Pal Ponder on Weather here. In this update, we're going to be talking about this upcoming El Nino continuing to get stronger and what that means going forward. So let's start off with the overall latest ENSO outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. And you can see they've actually got about a 93% probability now of this El Nino coming to fruition and taking hold and continue to get stronger, really intensifying as we head into hurricane season. And that typically puts the squash, or at least has added shear into the Atlantic, and typically that favors a lower than average season for this upcoming hurricane season. If we take a look at the latest update on the trend of this El Nino, we've been in this predominant La Nina setup for the last 3 years, and we really haven't seen a stronger type El Nino since 2015. And this is showing every bit of signs of trending that way as we get closer into the summer months. And you can see the chart here as it continues to try to intensify, and all indications show that is exactly what's going to happen in the coming months, and topping out right around into the moderate, if not strong, El Nino phase. So it's all complements of these well above average temperatures out here into the equatorial Pacific. You can see this really intense heat out here off the coast of South America here. That is all complements of that building El Nino. And this warm blob up here into the North Pacific, that creates the ridge that's going to be building across portions of Canada, but also is going to be able to dip this trough further south and towards the Baja. And that's what's bringing in a lot of the severe storms across the central part of the US. But at the same time, as this dips, it's going to be able to tap into some of these well above average sea surface anomalies down here in the equatorial Pacific. And that is also going to activate the more subtropical jet stream. And that's why you're going to be seeing some of our southern regions and more of the southern plains picking up abundant amount of rainfall over the coming months as this El Nino continues to come to fruition. So let's take a look at the setup going forward. You can actually see this overall jet stream further south into portions of Hawaii here. That's pretty intense, guys. I mean, that's going to be a steady stream of moisture, and you can see these low pressures really elongating and lining up just off into Mexico. And as these troughs dip, this is that warm blob that we talked about. She's pretty significant low down here at 977 millibar. That actually going to continue to lift, and lifts up the ridge up over Canada and comes down. You can see this low pressure center setting up over portions of the Four Corners region and really elongates and shoots across the Rockies. And that sets the stage for an abundant amount of severe storms across the Central Plains. At the same time, we've got our jet stream well north, and that creates very light winds of loft, and that has low steering currents. So when you have these low pressure centers tap into this abundance amount of moisture, well above average temperatures down here in the Gulf, it's just going to wring it out like a sponge, and it really has a lot lower steering currents to deal with, and it really doesn't travel very fast in any short amount of time. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel, and it's also important to hit the like button as well. It definitely helps out more than you know. And let's take a look at the overall latest Drought Index, and this is pretty prominent across the central US. We've been in this, like I mentioned, this La Nina for a long period of time. So this is a rapid change of what we've been seeing over the last 3 years, as we're starting to see the trend as more setups will be starting to set up across West Texas, Western Oklahoma, Western Kansas, across the Central Plains, started to eat away at this drought. And I think that's slowly going to happen over the coming months as this thing really starts to intensify. And we'll start to see a lot of these southern regions start to get more amplified, especially down here in the desert Southwest. There's already signs of more hints of abundance, above average precipitation coming back for them. And then kind of more of a monsoonal look, that even starting well early this time of year At the same time, we'll have more of our polar jet becoming a lot less active, and you tend to heat up in a lot of these areas up here into portions of Idaho and Montana and back into the Dakotas, and we'll have less opportunities for rainfall as well. And then we also start somewhat drying out over the portions of the Northeast as well. So let's take a look at that jet stream. This is, again, pretty prominent with the jet stream so far north. There's nothing to stop this southerly flow until it goes basically all the way to Canada. So it puts the well above average, precipitation across the central part of the US. And that type of atmosphere, when you have systems coming across and tapping into that more active subtropical jet. And this is the latest update on the overall ensembles on the European guidance just for the next week. You can see where the ridge is, right? Where the ridge is going to be starting to build over the Pacific Northwest. That puts them higher than average temperatures, but also has a lot of sinking air, and also has the well below average precipitation anomalies for them. But the complete opposite across the central part of the US, where they've got all that lift to deal with, and they have a more active subtropical jet. They got plenty of high dew points in this region. And then the jet stream further north, there's not much stopping to stop this surge to lift all the way through Texas, through portions of New Mexico, through Denver. I mean, Denver had some of their wettest 3 days on in a long time. Like, I think I read that there was the eighth wettest day on record. So they're actually picking up an abundance amount of rain for them. And like I said, that surge continues further north all the way to Nebraska, going through the Dakotas, and reaching all the way to the Canadian border as well. And then you try to get these systems that kind of veer off, but as they shift a little bit further off and get deeper into the south, as from the northwest to the southeast, they tend to lose their intensity and die out. So that way you get less amounts across here portions of the mid-Atlantic as well as into the northeast. So going forward, here's the overall temperature anomalies for the next week. So again, we've got that ridge of high pressure really dominating the weather setups out for the Pacific Northwest. A lot of sinking air, a lot of heat is going to be continuing in that region. And then you get this trapping zone with the above average rain amounts, the cloudy conditions down here. That also puts them below average, over the next 7 days. So going forward, as we extend the view and go and tack on about another 2 weeks through the end of May, you can see kind of a similar setup, right? We still have that ridge of high pressure pretty much over the Pacific Northwest. We still have the southerly flow. The only thing that really changes is the shifts a little bit further off into the Four Corners regions, and especially heading into portions of the Arizona region. And we do have a little bit of a cool front that's going to be coming in from the northeast. It's going to be diving down, and once this gets back into the portions of the southeast, that cold front will be stalling over a period of time, and that's going to wring out some precipitation back here into portions of the southeast as well as into the Carolinas. And at the same time, that's also going to put this area where they have increased rainfall. They're going to be having below average temperatures, overall for the second week, 7 days from now, going into the 15th day time frame. And then the heat continues to build up there into the Pacific Northwest. And that's exactly what the Climate Prediction Center really has unfolding, as the well above average temperature anomalies really act, over the Pacific Northwest and much of our northwestern states. At the same time, where the rain is and where all the instability is, they'll have all the cooler than average weather. And then for the most part, you'll just more or less have near normal conditions for the temperature outlook for portions of the Ohio Valley and getting into the Northeast. But this is an El Nino look all day long, folks. You got a more active subtropical jet to the south, something we have not seen in a long time. Been many years actually. And then you have a less active threat with the less active polar jet and up here for the northern states, and that's going to bring the overall drier conditions for them, but increased rain amounts further south and really looking like more of a monsoonal setup for the desert Southwest as we get into that third week of May. But what's interesting as we go into that last week of May, heading towards Memorial Day or right around that time frame, we're going to start to have the ridge starting to build back. So there are early signs of hints where we see this ridge kind of building over the tops, and a lot of pressures tend to start lowering underneath. We're getting into tropical season, right? I mean, this is the middle of May, and we'll be heading, going into tropical, hurricane season that starts June the 1st. And there's signs that we might have some early development, and this is an area of that we'll have to watch kind of early on in the season, as well. Again, we'll have these cold fronts come down, right? We'll have these cold fronts come down. When they stall, they tend to put a low pressure kind of over out in the open waters, and as they kind of meander and kind of sit there, you definitely have to look for these low pressures, on the southwest tail of these lows could lower some of these pressures, especially with the ridge starting to build over the top in Canada. That will also help amplify and sink in and deepen some of these lower pressures. So we'll be watching this area across portions into the Carolinas and right here off the southeast coast, or as we get closer into that Memorial Weekend time frame. And that's exactly what the European weeklies have it as well. So they got the ridge over the top, and this is the pressures and indicating that we've got lower pressures kind of around that time frame, in that end of May, first week of June, down here in portions of the southeast. So yes, they are going to have increased precipitation anomalies for that region, but they're also at the same time, we'll have to look for maybe some sort of early season tropical type entity trying to form in that type of atmosphere. So going forward, as we go into the overall for the next 30 days, I think predominantly you're going to be seeing, kind of well above average temperatures for a good part of the Pacific Northwest and more of our northern central plain states. And then further south, where it's continued to remain a little bit more unsettled and more unstable, then you'll see average, just maybe slightly below average precipitation, temperature anomalies for the next 30 days. And, again, as we extend the view and for the next 30 days, even on the latest GFS extended, they kind of have the same thing, folks. I mean, some most global guidances are really hinting at the same overall setups going forward, with the ridge really activating, dominating over the Pacific Northwest. And then we'll have this area that's basically in that drought, right? You have the most significant drought in the US, and that has the highest precipitation anomalies in it. So this is definitely a kind of a good sign to see. And some of this may fall too fast, too furious, and have some flooding rains, exactly what's probably going to be happening further south into Texas over the next couple of days, especially down there towards the Rio Grande Valley and Brownsville and Del Rio area. Those guys are in a desperate drought, and they're going to be seeing a lot of rainfall in a short amount of time. It's not going to be able to sink in. So this is what you're going to find, and then I think that's just going to amplify and deepen. And again, even on the 30-day outlook, it has that above average precipitation anomaly is really setting up over portions of the southeast and the Carolinas, and right there into the off the coast there, you have those above average precipitation also hinging at some sort of maybe, an eye to watch for tropical storm development. And again, the Euro weeklies kind of have the same thing. Same areas of instability puts the above average and below average precipitation in the kind of the exact same spots. And even if we go into the next 45 days, I don't think this setup really, this is just now beginning. And I think it continues to build and actually probably intensify as we go into the month of June. So definitely I'm expecting kind of a wetter month overall for June for a good part of the southeast, and especially the southern plains, and heading through portions of Colorado and all the way through portions of the Dakotas, and heading up all the way into portions extending into Canada with that jet stream to the north. These low steering currents in the middle of the country are going to be really intensifying these precipitation, going forward. But as we go in through the month of July, if we kind of extend the outlook beyond that, we start to see kind of more of these northwest flow setups. I still think your above average temperatures out to the west, but we'll start to see these kind of more like ridge rider type setups as the ridge will start to build over the top, and then we'll get pockets of colder air underneath, and we'll set up these areas of instability that could be traveling across the northwest flow, diving from the northwest to the southeast, create some squall line type conditions, straight line wind type setups as they activate and take advantage of that heat in the middle of the afternoon. Storms development, travel down off the south, the northwest flow. And even going back in July, we kind of have the hints of the same thing, of more of a southerly jet, more activated, and the desert southwest will be highly into the monsoon season. So I think it starts early this year, more or less, because of the coming El Nino. And then once we'll have the monsoon season, we'll have plenty of rain for a good part of the desert southwest going forward as we go into the summer months. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update where I protect you before and after the storm.